Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to know. Don't just sit back, tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. The morning sun burned through the Arizona dust as Célestine stood between two worlds. Her father, Baron Augustin Beaumont, gripped her wrist so tight it left marks. His French accent cut through the desert air like a blade. You have shamed our family for the last time. The Apache warriors waited on their horses, their faces unreadable as stone. The one they called Nahiasi sat tallest, his dark eyes never leaving her face. She knew what everyone saw, a woman of 23 summers who weighed more than any proper lady should. Her corset could barely contain her body, and sweat already soaked through her blue silk dress. The other French settlers watched from their wagons, whispering behind their hands. Some laughed. Some shook their heads. Her younger sister Marguerite stood beside their father, beautiful and slim, the daughter he actually wanted. Please, Papa, Célestine begged, but her voice cracked. I will try harder. I will eat less. I will. He slapped her. The sound echoed across the canyon. You are no daughter of mine. You refused 3 suitors. You eat like a pig. You embarrass me at every gathering. He turned to Nahiasi and spoke in broken English. Take her. She is your problem now. Maybe savage life will teach her discipline. The Apache warrior dismounted his horse. He walked toward her slowly, each step deliberate. Célestine's heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. This man would probably use her as a slave, or worse. The stories she'd heard about Apache warriors made her knees shake. But when Nahiasi reached her, he did something unexpected. He removed his own leather jacket and placed it around her shoulders, covering the torn part of her dress where her father had grabbed her. Can you ride? Nahiasi asked in perfect French. The sound of her language from his lips shocked her. She shook her head, too stunned to speak. He nodded and whistled. A gentle mare approached, smaller than the war horses. This is Moonflower. She carries precious things carefully. He helped her mount, his hands respectful, touching only her arm to steady her. Her father snorted. Precious? She's worth less than the horses you brought. Nahiasi's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He mounted his own horse and took Moonflower's reins. As they began to ride away, Célestine looked back one last time. Her father had already turned his back. Marguerite waved a small goodbye, tears in her eyes, but their father grabbed her hand and pulled it down. The Apache camp appeared after 2 hours of riding. Women and children emerged from wickiups to stare at her. She heard their whispers, saw their curious looks. They had never seen a white woman built like her. Nahiasi helped her dismount and led her to a wickiup set apart from the others. Inside, she found soft buffalo skins, water, and food. This is yours, he said simply. No one will enter without your permission. She stared at him, confused. Am I not your slave? His face darkened. The Apache do not keep slaves. You are here because your father is a fool who throws away treasures. He left before she could ask what he meant. That night, Célestine cried herself to sleep on the buffalo skins. Every sound outside made her jump. Wind rattled the wickiup's frame. Coyotes howled in the distance. She thought about her life in her father's house, the constant criticism, the way he looked at her with disgust, how he paraded Marguerite at parties while making her stay hidden. Maybe being given away wasn't the worst thing. At least here, no one knew her shame. But as she drifted to sleep, she remembered Nahiasi's words. Treasures. He had called her a treasure. No one had ever called her that before. Not once in her entire life. Dawn came too soon. Célestine woke to find a young Apache woman standing at her wickiup entrance. The woman was beautiful, with long black hair decorated with beads. She held clothing and spoke in careful French. I am Ayana, Nahiasi's sister. He asked me to bring you these. The clothes were Apache soft deer skin dress and leggings. Celestine's cheeks burned. I don't think they will fit. Ayana smiled kindly. I made them myself. They will fit. To Celestine's amazement, they did. The deer skin was forgiving, comfortable, nothing like the crushing corsets she'd worn her whole life. Ayana helped her braid her blonde hair and taught her to tie it with leather strips. When they emerged from the wickiup, the camp had already begun their morning routines. Women tended fires, children played, men prepared hunting gear. Nahiasi appeared from the chief's wickiup. When he saw her in Apache clothing, something flickered in his eyes. He approached slowly, and Célestine braced herself for mockery. Instead, he said, "Now you can breathe." She hadn't realized she was holding her breath until that moment. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "My father gave me to you as punishment." "As shame." Nahiasi studied her face. "Your father sees only with his eyes. I see with more than that." Before she could ask what he meant, a commotion erupted at the camp's edge. Apache scouts rode in fast, dust flying. They spoke rapidly to Nahiasi in Apache. His face grew serious. "Mexican soldiers," he translated for her. "Coming this way. Looking for Apache to sell as slaves in the south." The camp exploded into action. Women gathered children, men grabbed weapons. Ayana pulled Célestine toward the forest. "We must hide the children," she said urgently. But Célestine froze. "I can't run fast. I'll slow everyone down." Nahiasi overheard and made a quick decision. "You don't run. You ride." He lifted her onto Moonflower as if she weighed nothing. "Take the children who can't walk far. Lead them to the hidden canyon. Ayana knows the way." Célestine's hands shook as she took the reins. 3 small children were placed on the horse with her. Their dark eyes were wide with fear. One little girl, maybe 4 years old, clung to Célestine's dress. "Please," the child whispered in Apache. Célestine didn't understand the words, but she understood the fear. They rode hard through the forest paths. Célestine's body ached, but she held the children tight. Behind them, she heard gunshots. The Mexican soldiers had found the camp. Ayana ran alongside the horse, carrying an infant. Other women followed with more children. They reached the hidden canyon just as the sun hit its peak. It was a narrow space between 2 cliff walls, invisible unless you knew where to look. They waited in silence, listening. The little girl in Célestine's arms had fallen asleep, trusting her completely. It was the first time anyone had trusted her with something important. Hours passed before Nahiasi and his warriors returned. They had driven off the soldiers, but 2 men were wounded. That night, the camp celebrated their survival. The little girl who had clung to Célestine refused to leave her side. Her name was Elu, Ayana explained. Her parents had died last winter. "She has chosen you," Ayana said. "Children know who has a good heart." Nahiasi watched from across the fire as Elu fell asleep in Célestine's lap. When their eyes met, he nodded once, a gesture of approval. The other Apache began to look at her differently too. She had protected their children. She belonged to the tribe now, even if she didn't know it yet. As the fire died down, Nahiasi approached. "You did well today." She looked up at him, this warrior who confused her so much. "I was terrified." Being brave doesn't mean not feeling fear. It means acting despite it. He sat beside her, careful not to wake Elu. "Your father was wrong about you." The words hung between them like a bridge she didn't know how to cross. 2 weeks passed in the Apache camp. Célestine learned their routines, their rhythms. Every morning, Elu would run to her wickiup, chattering in Apache. Célestine didn't understand all the words, but she understood the joy. Ayana taught her to prepare Apache bread, to recognize edible plants, to bead leather. Her fingers were clumsy at first. The other women giggled, but not meanly. They showed her again and again until she got it right. Nahiasi watched from a distance, always watching. He would leave for hunts and raids, sometimes gone for days. But he always returned to check on her, bringing small gifts, a pretty stone, a feather, fresh meat for her pot. The other warriors teased him in Apache, and though she didn't understand, she saw how his ears turned red. One morning, a problem arose. Célestine's dress was torn beyond repair, and she needed new clothes. The women gathered to make her more garments, but they needed her measurements. In her father's world, being measured was torture. The seamstresses would tut and shake their heads, commenting on every extra inch. But here, the Apache women simply measured and cut, talking about the softness of the hide, the beauty of the beading they planned. No one mentioned her size except to ensure comfort. "You need room to ride, to work, to breathe," Ayana said matter-of-factly. When the new dress was complete, it was beautiful, decorated with blue beads that matched her eyes, cut to flatter rather than hide. Nahiasi saw her wearing it while teaching Elu to count using stones. He stopped mid-stride, staring. That afternoon, Mexican traders arrived at the camp. They were allowed to trade but watched carefully. One trader, a greasy man named Joaquin, saw Célestine and laughed. "So the stories are true. The French baron gave away his fat daughter to savages." He spoke in Spanish, thinking she wouldn't understand. But Célestine knew Spanish, French, and was learning Apache. She kept her face neutral. Joaquin continued, "I'll give you 3 horses for her, Apache. You could use her in a traveling show. People would pay to see such a creature." The camp went silent. Nahiasi's hand moved to his knife. But before he could speak, Célestine stood. "In perfect Spanish," she said, "this creature speaks 3 languages. How many do you speak, traitor?" Joaquin's face went red. The Apache warriors laughed. Nahiasi stepped forward, his voice deadly quiet. "She is not for trade. She is under my protection. Insult her again, and you'll leave here missing important parts." Joaquin left quickly after that, his trading cut short. The story spread through the camp. Célestine had defended herself with words sharp as any blade. That evening, the chief, Nahiasi's father, invited her to eat at his fire. It was a great honor. "You have a warrior spirit," the chief said through Ayana's translation. "Size of body means nothing. Size of spirit means everything." After dinner, Nahiasi walked her back to her wickiup. "You surprised me today," he admitted. "Speaking Spanish." She smiled slightly. "My father insisted I learn languages. Said it might make me marriageable despite my defects." Nahiasi stopped walking. In the moonlight, his face was serious. "You have no defects. You have differences. Differences make you strong." That night, Célestine couldn't sleep. She thought about Nahiasi's words, about how different life was here. In 3 weeks, no one had called her ugly. No one had hidden her away. Elu loved her. Ayana was becoming a true friend. And Nahiasi, what was Nahiasi to her? Her owner? Her protector? Or something else entirely? Outside, she heard him pacing near her wickiup. He often did that at night, she'd noticed. Guarding her. But from what? The camp was safe. Unless he wasn't guarding her from something. Maybe he was guarding her for something. The thought made her heart race in a way that had nothing to do with fear. A month into her new life, everything changed. 5 Apache warriors from another band arrived at camp. Their leader, Kurik, was tall and scarred, with cruel eyes. He had come to trade, but his gaze fixed on Célestine immediately. "The white woman," he said in Apache. Ayana translated quietly. "I heard Nahiasi keeps a French cow as a pet." The insult was clear even without translation. Nahiasi stepped between Kurik and Célestine. "She is under my protection." Kurik laughed. "Protection? Or are you growing soft, cousin? Keeping white women now like the Mexicans do?" The tension crackled. Other warriors gathered. This was about more than Célestine, it was about honor, about leadership, about old rivalries. Kurik continued, I challenge you. Combat for the woman. She should serve a real warrior, not a half-blood who speaks the white man's tongue. Célestine's blood went cold. Half-blood? She looked at Nahiasi with new eyes. His features were Apache, but now she saw it something else too. Ayana whispered quickly, our mother was Mexican. Taken in a raid, but father loved her. Nahiasi carries that burden. Now she understood why he spoke French, Spanish. Why some warriors looked at him with suspicion. He was caught between worlds, just like her. I accept, Nahiasi said simply. The fight would be at sunset. Until then, Kurik and his men would camp outside the main circle. Célestine found Nahiasi preparing his weapons. You don't have to do this. I'm not worth. He grabbed her shoulders gently. You are worth more than you know. But this isn't just about you. Kurik has wanted to challenge me for years. You're just his excuse. The news spread fast. By sunset, the entire camp had gathered. The rules were simple: hand-to-hand combat until one yielded or couldn't continue. Kurik was bigger, stronger. Nahiasi was faster, smarter. They circled each other like wolves. Kurik struck first, a heavy blow that sent Nahiasi stumbling. The crowd gasped. Célestine's hands clenched. Elu hit her face in Célestine's skirts. But Nahiasi recovered, dodging the next blow and landing his own. Back and forth they fought, blood and dust mixing in the fading light. Kurik was winning. He had Nahiasi on the ground, hands around his throat. Célestine couldn't watch. Then she remembered something. Kurik favored his left leg. She'd seen him limping slightly when he arrived. Without thinking, she shouted in Apache, the few words she knew, his left. The weakness is left. Nahiasi heard. With his last strength, he struck Kurik's left knee. The bigger man crumbled. In seconds, Nahiasi had reversed their positions. Kurik yielded, gasping for air. The camp erupted. Célestine had helped Nahiasi win. Some called it cheating. Others called it loyalty. The chief raised his hand for silence. The woman is pack now. Pack helps pack. The fight is won. Kurik and his men left in shame. Nahiasi limped to Célestine, blood running from his lip. You learned Apache, he said, wonder in his voice. She touched his face gently, wiping away the blood. Ayana has been teaching me. I wanted to understand you. Something shifted between them in that moment. His hand covered hers. You already understand me better than anyone. That night, the camp celebrated. But Célestine noticed the looks from some warriors. Not everyone was happy about her interference. Ayana warned her quietly, you've made enemies today. But you've also proven something important. What? Célestine asked. That you choose us. That you're not just here because you have nowhere else to go. You fought for Nahiasi. That means everything. Later, Nahiasi came to her wiki-up. His face was swollen, but he smiled. Thank you, he said simply. For seeing what I couldn't see. She knew he meant more than just Kurik's weakness. He meant everything, seeing him as more than a half-blood, seeing the camp as home, seeing herself as worthy of defending. Stay, she said suddenly. You're hurt. Rest here. He hesitated, then sat on the buffalo skins. They talked until dawn about his mother, his struggle to belong, her father's cruelty, her own battles with never being enough. When he finally fell asleep, his head rested against her shoulder. She didn't move, didn't want to break whatever spell had woven around them. The morning after the fight brought unexpected visitors. French soldiers from Fort Beaumont, her father's trading post. Célestine recognized the captain, Laurent Dubois. He had often dined at their table, leering at her over his wine. We've come for the Baron's daughter, Laurent announced in broken Apache, then switched to French when he saw her. Your father has reconsidered. You're to return immediately. Célestine's stomach dropped. Nahiasi stepped forward, still bruised from yesterday's fight. She was given to us. The trade is complete. Laurent smirked. Trades can be reversed. The Baron offers 20 horses and 5 rifles. It was a fortune. The Apache needed those rifles. Célestine saw the warriors considering. Even Ayana looked tempted. But Nahiasi didn't hesitate. She is not for trade. Laurent's face darkened. Then we'll take her. You savages have no legal claim to a French citizen. I am no longer French, Célestine said, stepping forward. Her voice was steady though her hands shook. I choose to stay. Laurent laughed. You have no choice. You're a woman. Your father owns you until you marry. He grabbed her arm roughly. Everything happened fast. Nahiasi's knife was at Laurent's throat before anyone could blink. Remove your hand or lose it. The French soldiers raised their rifles. The Apache warriors raised their bows. Stand off. Then little Elu ran forward, placing herself between Célestine and Laurent. She screamed in Apache, she's my mother now. You can't take her. The child's fierce protection shocked everyone. Laurent released Célestine's arm. The chief stepped forward. The child has claimed her as mother. By Apache law, she cannot leave while the child needs her. It was a thin excuse, but it worked. Laurent couldn't shoot a child without starting a war. Your father won't forget this insult, Laurent spat at Célestine. He's already spreading word that you've become a savage's whore. No decent man will ever have you now. The words should have hurt. A month ago, they would have destroyed her. But now? Good, she said simply. I never wanted a decent man by his definition anyway. The soldiers laughed, but not before Laurent delivered one more threat. The Baron is powerful. He has friends. This isn't over. After they gone, Nahiasi pulled Célestine aside. Why didn't you go? They offered freedom. She looked at him like he was mad. Freedom? To return to a man who threw me away like garbage? Who beats me for eating? Who considers me his greatest shame? Her voice broke. This is freedom. Here, with people who see me as human. That night, Nahiasi found her crying by the river. I've ruined everything, she sobbed. My father will retaliate. He'll bring more soldiers. People will die because of me. Nahiasi sat beside her, closer than he'd ever dared before. People die anyway. At least now they'd die for something worthwhile. She looked at him through her tears. How am I worthwhile? I'm exactly what everyone says: too big, too loud, too much. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. My mother was considered too much also. Too Mexican for the Apache, too Apache for the Mexicans. But my father saw her true worth. She was brave, kind, fierce when protecting others. She taught me languages, taught me to see beyond surfaces. He turned to face her fully. You are like her. Too much for small minds to understand. But not too much for me. The words hung between them. Célestine's heart raced. Nahiasi, what are you saying? He took her hand, his calloused fingers gentle. I'm saying your father was a fool. He gave away a treasure because he couldn't see past his own prejudice. But I see you, Célestine. I see your strength when you hold Elu through nightmares. Your intelligence when you learn our language faster than anyone expected. Your courage when you stood against those traitors, those soldiers. His thumb traced circles on her palm. I see how you make our camp brighter just by being in it. She couldn't breathe. No one had ever spoken to her like this. But I'm not. I don't look like. He squeezed her hand. You look like yourself. That's all I want you to look like. The moon reflected in his dark eyes. Stay, Célestine. Not because you have nowhere else to go. Stay because you want to. Stay because. He couldn't finish, but she understood. Stay because I'm falling in love with you. The truth of it terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. 3 days after the soldiers left, a dust storm hit the camp. But this was no natural storm. Riders emerged from the swirling sand. Mexican slavers, at least 30 of them. Leading them was Joaquin, the traitor Nahiasi had threatened. Apaches, he shouted. The French baron pays gold for the white woman's return. Surrender her, and we leave peacefully. Refuse, and we take her anyway, along with your children for the slave markets. The Apache were outnumbered. Some warriors were away hunting. Nahiasi stepped forward, but Joaquin laughed. The half-blood protector. Tell me, savage, is she worth your people dying? Before Nahiasi could answer, Célestine emerged from her wickiup. I'll go. The words cut through the chaos. No. Nahiasi grabbed her arm. You don't understand what they'll do to you. She looked at him with sad eyes. I won't let children die for me. Ayana ran forward. Sister, no. You are one of us now. But Célestine was already walking toward Joaquin. Then she did something unexpected. As she approached Joaquin, she stumbled, falling hard. My ankle, she cried out. Joaquin dismounted, impatient. Get up, cow. As he bent to grab her, she threw sand in his eyes and grabbed his pistol. In one motion, she pressed it to his head. Now we negotiate differently, she said calmly. The slavers raised their rifles, but Joaquin screamed, Don't shoot. Don't shoot. Célestine had learned more than language in her time with the Apache. She'd learned strategy. Here's what happens, she announced in Spanish so everyone understood. You leave. Now. You tell my father I'm dead. Killed by Apache. Make it believable. In return, your leader lives. Joaquin sputtered, he'll never believe. She pressed the gun harder. Then make him believe. Or would you prefer a bullet? The Mexican slavers looked uncertain. Their leader was hostage to a woman they'd called weak. Nahiasi and the Apache warriors used the distraction. They surrounded the slavers silently, bows drawn. Seems you're outnumbered now, Nahiasi said coldly. Joaquin's men began backing away. They valued their lives more than gold. Take him, Célestine said, shoving Joaquin toward his men. Remember I'm dead. If I hear otherwise, if anyone comes looking again, I'll find you. And next time, I won't hesitate. The threat from a woman they'd mocked as soft carried surprising weight. As the slavers fled, Joaquin shouted back, You're not the same woman who arrived here. No, she wasn't. That woman would have surrendered. This woman had become something else. The camp erupted in celebration, but Célestine collapsed. The strain, the fear, the adrenaline, it all crashed down. Nahiasi caught her before she hit the ground. That was insane, he breathed. That was brilliant. She laughed weakly. Ayana taught me that move. Said Apache women must be clever, not just strong. The chief approached, his weathered face proud. Through Ayana's translation, he spoke, You risked yourself for the tribe. You used wisdom over force. Today, you proved you have an Apache heart. He placed a hand on her head, a blessing. You are no longer a guest. You are family. The words meant everything. But looking at Nahiasi's face, seeing the fear still lingering, their fear of losing her meant even more. That evening, as the camp settled, Nahiasi couldn't stop pacing outside her wickiup. Finally, Célestine called out, Just come in. You're wearing a path in the dirt. He entered, his face serious. You scared me today. When you walked toward them, I thought. His voice broke. I thought I'd lost you before I could tell you. She stood, moving closer. Tell me what? He cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing her cheeks. That you've become my heart. That when you hurt, I hurt. When you smile, my world brightens. that eye she kissed him. It was clumsy, uncertain she'd never kissed anyone before. But he responded like she was air and he'd been drowning. When they parted, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Not just in the camp. With me. As my wife." The proposal stunned her. Apache warriors could marry anyone. But choosing her? "Your people won't accept it," she protested. "Some will whisper, let them whisper," he said fiercely. "I've been an outsider my whole life. But with you, I'm home." The proposal changed everything. Nahiasi had asked her to be his wife, but Apache marriage required the chief's blessing and the tribe's acceptance. Not everyone was pleased. Some warriors argued she would weaken their bloodline. Others said Nahiasi deserved an Apache woman who could give him strong children. The women were divided too. Ayana supported the match fiercely, but others worried about tradition. Célestine heard the whispers, understood enough Apache now to know what they said. Too different. Too soft. What about children? That last question hurt most. Her mother had struggled to have children after Célestine. What if she couldn't give Nahiasi sons? The doubt crept in like poison. Maybe she should leave, let him find someone worthy. But every time she considered it, Elu would run to her with flowers, or Ayana would teach her something new, or Nahiasi would look at her like she hung the moon. 3 days after the proposal, unexpected allies arrived. An Apache band from the south, led by a woman warrior named Cochita. She was legendary, had fought Mexican soldiers, American settlers, anyone who threatened her people. She was also Nahiasi's aunt, his mother's sister. "So," Cochita said, circling Célestine like a hawk. "You're the French woman causing such fuss." She spoke in Spanish, knowing Célestine understood. "My nephew wants to marry you. Tell me why I should support this." Célestine straightened her spine. "I don't need your support. Only his." Cochita laughed, surprising everyone. "Good. A backbone. You'll need it." She turned to the gathered crowd. "I knew my sister, Nahiasi's mother. She was Mexican, taken in raid. Many said my brother shouldn't marry her. Too different, they said. Too soft." She paused. "She gave us Nahiasi. She taught us enemy languages that saved lives. She brought new medicine knowledge." Cochita looked directly at the doubters. Different doesn't mean weak. But the real test came that afternoon. A hunting party returned with bad news. Buffalo soldiers were coming. The Black American cavalry, known for their fierce fighting. They had Apache scouts with them, traders who helped track their own people. "We must move camp," the chief decided. It would be hard, fast travel through rough country. Everyone looked at Célestine. Could she keep up? Would she slow them down? "I can ride," she said firmly. But privately, she worried. Long riding hurt her body in ways others didn't understand. Nahiasi saw her concern. "We'll find a way," he promised. But she knew the truth: if she couldn't keep pace, she'd endanger everyone. That night, she made a decision. She found Cochita sharpening her knives. "Teach me," Célestine said. "To fight? You?" Cochita scoffed. "I'll never be a great fighter. But teach me to be useful. To be strong in ways that matter." Cochita studied her for a long moment. "Tomorrow. Dawn. Be ready to hurt." The training was brutal. Cochita didn't coddle her. "Your body is your advantage," she said, showing Célestine how to use her weight in combat. "Men expect you to be slow. Surprise them." They practiced with knives, close combat, dirty fighting. Célestine's dress tore, her hands bled, her muscles screamed. But she didn't stop. Others began watching. Some mocked, but others saw determination. By the 3rd day, she could disarm Ayana in practice combat. Small victory, but victory nonetheless. Nahiasi watched from afar, pride and worry warring on his face. "Why do this?" he asked that evening, treating her scraped knuckles. "You don't need to prove anything." She winced as he cleaned the wounds. "I'm not proving. I'm becoming. Becoming someone who deserves to stand beside you." He kissed her forehead. "You already deserve that. You deserved it the moment you chose to stay." The morning they broke camp, Célestine surprised everyone. She'd practiced in secret with Moonflower, building her riding stamina. She kept pace all day, though her thighs burned and her back ached. When they stopped for water, Conchita rode beside her. "You're in pain," the warrior woman observed. "Yes," Célestine admitted. "But pain ends. Shame lasts forever." Conchita nodded approvingly. "Now you're thinking like Apache." That night, when they made camp in a hidden valley, the chief called Nahiasi and Célestine to his fire. "The tribe has watched. The woman has shown courage, loyalty, determination. But marriage is more than that." He looked at Célestine. "Can you give my son children?" The question she'd dreaded. "I don't know," she answered honestly. "My mother struggled. I may too. But I can love him. I can stand beside him. I can raise Elu and any orphan children as my own." "If that's not enough." "It's enough," Nahiasi interrupted. "Father, she's enough as she is." The chief was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. "Your mother would have liked her. Strong spirit in a soft body. Yes, you may marry." The relief hit Célestine so hard she swayed. Nahiasi caught her, laughing. Around them, the tribe began to celebrate. Not everyone was happy, but most were. She'd proven herself in ways they hadn't expected. The wedding would be in 7 days, when the full moon rose. 7 days to become an Apache bride. 7 days to prepare for a life she'd never imagined. The wedding preparations should have been joyful. Ayana and the women worked on Célestine's wedding dress, white doskin decorated with hundreds of blue beads. But on the 4th day, everything went wrong. Scouts reported soldiers approaching, not Buffalo soldiers, but French. Leading them was Baron Augustin Beaumont himself. Célestine's father had come. "He brings 50 men," the scout reported. "And he's not alone. There's a priest, witnesses. He says he comes in peace to retrieve his daughter." Nahiasi grabbed his weapons, but Célestine stopped him. "I need to face him. He won't leave otherwise." The meeting was arranged at neutral ground between the camp and the soldiers. Célestine, dressed in her Apache clothes, held her head high. When her father saw her, his face twisted in disgust. "You've grown even fatter living like an animal." The words that once would have destroyed her now bounced off like rain. "Hello, father." Her voice was steady. Behind her stood Nahiasi, Conchita, and 10 warriors. "I've come to save you from yourself," Augustine said. "The priest will annul this savage ceremony. You'll return to civilization." He gestured to a man beside him, Claude Moreau, the wealthy merchant who'd rejected her before. "Monsieur Moreau has graciously agreed to marry you despite your adventures." Claude looked at her with greedy eyes. "Your father drives a hard bargain. Half his trading fortune for damaged goods. But I need a wife, and you'll do." Célestine laughed. Actually laughed. "No." Augustine's face went red. "You don't have a choice. I'm your father. You were my father. You gave me away, remember? Traded me like cattle. The deal is done." She stepped forward. "I'm marrying Nahiasi in 3 days. I'm staying here. Go home." Augustine pulled out a document. "I've had lawyers examine the trade. It was made under duress, therefore invalid. You're still legally mine." He smiled coldly. "Come willingly, or I'll have you dragged." Nahiasi stepped forward, knife drawn. "Try it." The tension crackled. 50 French soldiers against 30 Apache warriors. But then Célestine did something unexpected. She pulled out her own knife and cut her palm, letting blood drip onto the earth. By Apache law, I bind myself to this land with blood oath. I renounce France, renounce your name, renounce your authority. She spoke in Apache, French, and Spanish so all could understand. I am Célestine of the Apache. I choose my own fate. The Apache warriors murmured approval. Blood oaths were sacred. But Augustine just laughed. Savage rituals mean nothing. Soldiers, take her. The soldiers moved forward. Arrows flew. Gunshots cracked. But before full battle could erupt, Marguerite appeared from behind the French lines. Célestine's younger sister, beautiful Marguerite, rode forward on a white horse. Stop, she screamed. Please, stop. She dismounted and ran to Célestine, tears streaming. Sister, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. She turned to their father. Tell her the truth, Papa. Tell her why you really want her back. Augustine's face went white. Marguerite, be silent. But Marguerite continued, Claude Moreau doesn't want to marry her. He wants our trading routes. The marriage contract gives him everything. Papa is bankrupt. He gambled everything away. He needs this marriage to save himself. The truth hung in the air like poison. He hadn't come to save her. He'd come to sell her again. You were always just property to him, Marguerite sobbed. But you were my sister. I should have protected you. I was a coward. She pulled out a leather pouch. Mother's jewelry. She left it for you, but Papa kept it. Take it. Run. Be happy. She whispered urgently, there's also a letter. From Mother. She knew what Papa was. Célestine took the pouch with shaking hands. Inside was a letter, yellowed with age. Her mother's handwriting. She'd read it later, when her heart could handle it. Come with me, Célestine offered. Leave him. But Marguerite shook her head. Someone needs to watch him. To protect the workers, the servants. But you're free. She kissed Célestine's cheek. Be happy. Be loved. Have everything I was too weak to fight for. She remounted and rode back to the French lines. Augustine's face was purple with rage. You fat cow. You've ruined everything. He pulled a pistol, aimed at Célestine. The shot was impossibly loud. But it wasn't Célestine who fell. Nahiasi had thrown himself in front of her. The bullet caught his shoulder, spinning him to the ground. No. Célestine screamed, dropping beside him. Blood soaked through his shirt. Everything happened at once. Conchita's arrow took Augustine in the leg. He fell, screaming. The French soldiers raised their rifles, but their captain stopped them. The Baron shot first. We're not dying for his debts. They retreated, dragging the wounded Baron. The priest crossed himself and fled. Claude Moreau was already gone. Only Marguerite looked back, her face full of sorrow and hope. The Apache carried Nahiasi to camp. The medicine woman worked frantically. The bullet had missed his lung but hit bone. He was losing blood. Célestine stayed beside him, pressing cloth to the wound, praying to every god she could think of. Don't leave me, she begged. You promised me the full moon. You promised. His eyes fluttered open, focused on her face. Still, here, he managed. Always, here. The medicine woman worked through the night. By dawn, his fever broke. He would live. Scarred but alive. The wedding would wait. But they had won something greater, freedom from her past. Her father would never return. The law might say she belonged to him, but bullets said otherwise. She was finally, truly free. While Nahiasi recovered, Célestine finally read her mother's letter. Ayana sat with her as she opened the yellowed paper with trembling hands. The words were in her mother's careful script, My dearest Célestine, if you're reading this, I am gone and you've discovered the truth about your father. You were never meant to be small. Your grandmother was like you, tall, strong, built for survival, not decoration. She was Norwegian, came from Vikings, she said. Your father hated that you inherited her frame instead of my delicate one. But I loved it. You were my warrior daughter, born to endure what would break others. I knew he would try to break you. Men like him always try to break what they can't control. But you, my darling, were made of stronger stuff. The jewelry is yours, sell it, use it, build a life away from him. Be free. Love freely. Life freely. Your body is not a punishment, it's armor. Use it well. All my love, Maman. Célestine sobbed into Iana's shoulder. Her mother had known. Had seen. Had loved her anyway. She called me her warrior, she whispered. Iana held her tight. Because that's what you are. The jewelry was valuable enough to trade for horses, weapons, supplies for the tribe. But one piece Célestine kept, a silver locket with her mother's portrait. She wore it on a leather cord, hidden beneath her Apache dress. Nahiasi grew stronger each day. The bullet wound left an ugly scar, but he wore it proudly. My first battle scar earned protecting something precious, he said, kissing her forehead. The tribe had fully accepted her now. She'd bled for them, literally. Even the doubters acknowledged her place. Little Elu had started calling her mother an Apache. Each time, Célestine's heart swelled. But peace was short-lived. Cochita's scouts brought disturbing news. The Baron survived. He's offering bounties for Apache scalps. Especially yours, she told Nahiasi. And hers, she added, looking at Célestine. $500 for the French woman who dishonored him. Célestine felt sick. Her father's hatred would endanger the entire tribe. I should leave, she said. Draw him away. No. Nahiasi's voice was firm. We don't abandon family. Cochita agreed. Besides, he's made a mistake. He's united other Apache bands against him. His trading post sits on disputed land. The chiefs are meeting. The council would be in 3 days. Chiefs from 5 bands would decide whether to strike Beaumont's trading post. It was war talk, and women weren't usually included. But the chief insisted Célestine attend. This started with you. Your voice should be heard. The night before the council, Nahiasi was finally strong enough to walk to the river. They sat on the bank, watching sunset paint the water gold. I've been thinking, he said quietly. About what your mother wrote. That you were made to endure. He took her hand. But you weren't just made to endure. You were made to thrive. Look how you've grown here. You ride, fight, speak our language. You've become the bridge between worlds. She leaned into him. I was so broken when I arrived. Convinced I was worthless. And now? She smiled. Now I know my worth. It's not in my size or beauty. It's in my choices. My loyalty. My love. He pulled her closer. The council will vote for war. Your father won't stop. Men like him never do. She knew he was right. Then we fight? We survive, he corrected. Whatever that takes. That night, she dreamed of her mother. In the dream, her mother was strong, tall like the grandmother she'd never met. You're exactly who you were meant to be, Dream Mother said. Stop apologizing for taking up space. The world needs women who take up space. When she woke, she found Nahiasi watching her. Bad dream? Good dream, she said. The best dream. Tomorrow would bring the council, decisions of war and peace. But tonight, she was exactly where she belonged beside the man who saw her true worth, in a place that valued strength over beauty, courage over compliance. Her father thought he'd punished her by giving her to the Apache. Instead, he'd set her free. The full moon was tomorrow. If the council voted for peace, she and Nahiasi would marry under its light. If they voted for war, the wedding would wait. Either way, she was home. Her real home. Not the place where she was born, but the place where she was reborn. The 5 Apache chiefs sat in a circle as the full moon rose. Chief Mangas of the northern band, Chief Victorio of the eastern band, Chief Loco of the southern band, Chief Nana of the western band, and Nahiasi's father, Chief Kosumi of the central band. Each brought 10 warriors. The gathering was massive, over 50 Apache warriors in one place. Célestine was the only white person present, the only woman besides Cochita, who had earned her place through blood and battle. The chief spoke in turn. Mangas wanted immediate war. The French baron poisons the water holes, pays for our scalps. He must die. Victorio counseled patience. Winter comes. War in winter kills our children. Loco spoke of opportunity. His trading post is rich. We could take enough supplies for all our bands. Nana worried about retaliation. Kill a French baron, and the army comes. Finally, Kosumi spoke. The woman he discarded sits among us. Let her speak. Célestine stood on shaking legs. She spoke in Apache, her accent thick but words clear. Augustine Beaumont is evil. This is true. But he's also weak. Marguerite, his other daughter, sends word through traitors. He's crippled from Cochita's arrow. His men desert him. He owes debts to dangerous people. She pulled out a letter that had arrived that morning, carried by a Mexican trader. His creditors come to collect. French authorities investigate his dealings. He will fall without our arrows. She paused, meeting each chief's eyes. But if we attack, we become the villains in his story. The army will come. Your families will suffer. Mangas scoffed. You counsel cowardice, white woman? I counsel wisdom, she replied. My mother once told me, when your enemy is destroying himself, don't interrupt. The chiefs murmured. It was sound advice, but unsatisfying. Warriors wanted action. Then Nahiasi stood. There's another way. We take what he values most without firing a shot. He smiled coldly. His trade routes. Every month, supply wagons cross Apache land. We've let them pass for small tributes. No more. We charge true passage price. Half their goods, or they go around adding weeks, costing fortunes. Cochita laughed. Bleed him slowly. I like it. Chief Victorio nodded. And if they refuse? Then we defend our land, Nahiasi said simply. Defense, not attack. The army can't fault us for that. The vote was called. One by one, the chiefs agreed. Economic warfare instead of bloody warfare. Célestine felt relief flood through her. No one would die for her father's hatred. The council was ending when a commotion erupted. Scouts dragged in a captured spy, one of Beaumont's men. But when they threw him to the ground, Célestine gasped. It wasn't a spy. It was Marcel, her father's bookkeeper, a kind man who'd sometimes snuck her extra food. Please, Marcel begged. I bring urgent news. The Baron is dead. Silence fell like a stone. Dead? Célestine whispered. Marcel nodded, tears running down his face. 3 days ago. His creditors came. When he couldn't pay, it was brutal. Marguerite barely escaped. She's hiding with the sisters at the convent. He looked at Célestine with desperate eyes. She sent me to find you. To warn you. The creditors know about you. They think you have the Baron's hidden fortune. They're coming. Célestine's blood went cold. There is no fortune. He was bankrupt. They don't believe that. They've hired bounty hunters. Not for scalps for capture. They want you alive, to torture the truth out of you. The implications were terrifying. Professional bounty hunters were different from soldiers. They knew tracking, ambush, patience. Nahiasi stepped forward. How many? 12 that I saw, Marcel stammered. Led by an American called Silas Bones. They say he's never lost a bounty. The chiefs exchanged dark looks. They knew that name. Silas Bones had captured Apache before, sold them to Mexican slavers. When? Chief Kosumi demanded. They were 3 days behind me. So, tonight, maybe tomorrow. The moon was directly overhead now. The wedding moon had become a war moon. We fight, Mongas declared. No choice now. But Célestine had another idea. What if I'm not here? What if they track me somewhere else? You're not bait, Nahiasi said firmly. I won't be. But Marcel, you could tell them you saw me heading south. To Mexico. That I was alone, expelled from the tribe. Marcel's eyes widened. Lie to them? They'll kill me if they find out. Or help us, and live under our protection, Cochita offered. Your choice. The plan formed quickly. Marcel would return to the bounty hunters, claim Célestine had been cast out for bringing trouble. He'd offer to guide them south on a false trail. Meanwhile, the Apache would prepare an ambush along the false route. It was risky. If Marcel betrayed them, they'd walk into a trap. But if it worked, they'd eliminate the bounty hunters without bringing war to the camp. I'll do it, Marcel said finally. The Baron was cruel to me too. And Marguerite, she saved my daughter once. I owe your family a debt. They sent him back immediately with his story. Now they had to wait, prepare, and hope. The wedding was postponed again. Instead of celebrating under the full moon, they sharpened weapons and planned death. Célestine found herself praying to her mother spirit. Give me strength, she whispered. Help me protect these people who took me in. The moon seemed to pulse in response. Tomorrow would bring either freedom or catastrophe. But tonight, she sat between Nahiasi and Elu, surrounded by warriors ready to die for her, and felt something she'd never felt in her father's house, the fierce protection of true family. They would face whatever came together. Dawn came blood-red over the canyon. Marcel had done his part. The bounty hunters followed his false trail south, believing Célestine fled alone toward Mexico. 50 Apache warriors waited in the canyon's shadows. Célestine hid with the women and children miles away, but her heart was in that canyon. Nahiasi led the ambush with Cochita. They'd chosen the battleground carefully, narrow passage, high walls, only one way in or out. The bounty hunters entered single file, confident in Marcel's intelligence. Silas Bones rode in front, a giant of a man with dead eyes and scarred hands. Behind him, 11 hardened killers. They expected to track a lone, soft woman. They found death instead. The first arrow struck before they could react. 3 men fell immediately. Silas Bones roared commands, trying to rally his men, but the Apache had every advantage. The battle was brief but vicious. Silas Bones proved why he was feared. He killed 2 Apache warriors before Nahiasi's blade found his throat. When the dust settled, all 12 bounty hunters were dead. But the Apache had lost 3 warriors, and 5 were wounded. The cost of Célestine's freedom kept rising. Marcel had stayed hidden during the fight, as instructed. Now he emerged, shaking. It's done? He asked. Cochita nodded grimly. It's done. You're free to go. But Marcel surprised them. Marguerite wanted me to give you this, he said, pulling out another letter. And, may I stay? There's nothing for me in the French world anymore. I can read, write, calculate. I could be useful. It was an unexpected request. Chief Kosumi would decide later. For now, they had bodies to burn and wounded to tend. Back at camp, Célestine read Marguerite's letter while helping the medicine woman with the wounded. Sister, by now you know Papa is dead. I'm not sorry. He was a monster who deserved his end. I'm entering the convent permanently. It's the only place his creditors can't reach me. I'm giving you legal claim to everything the trading post land, what little money remains, mother's name and heritage. The documents are with the priest. You're the only Beaumont heir now. Use it or abandon it as you wish. I hope you found love with your Apache warrior. Be happy. Be free. Your sister, Marguerite. P.S. I'm learning to read and write properly. The sisters say I'm quick. Maybe intelligence runs in our family, just hidden under father's cruelty. Célestine wept. Her sister, finally free too. Both of them escaping their father's shadow in different ways. What will you do? Ayanna asked. About the inheritance? Célestine thought carefully. The land could be useful. A legal claim to territory might protect the tribe. She found Nahiasi and the chief discussing the same thing. If you legally own land, the Apache could trade there safely, Kosumi mused. It would be a neutral ground. But Nahiasi worried. It would make you a target. Every greedy man would want to marry or kill you for it. Célestine took his hand. Then we marry immediately. Tonight. Apache law and French law. No one can claim what belongs to your wife. The chief smiled. Practical and romantic. You'll make a good Apache wife. That night, under the stars instead of the full moon, they held the ceremony. It was smaller than planned. Many warriors were wounded or mourning. But it was perfect. Elu scattered flower petals. Ayanna sang the marriage song. Cochita blessed them with smoke and prayers. Marcel, accepted as a friend of the tribe, wrote the French legal documents. Nahiasi placed a necklace of bear claws around Célestine's neck. You came to us soft, he said in Apache. You've become strong. You came foreign. You've become family. You came as punishment. You've become blessing. She responded in Apache, her words carefully practiced. You saw worth where others saw shame. You offered protection when I deserved nothing. You gave love when I thought I was unlovable. I choose you, today and all days. They sealed their union with a kiss that tasted of wood smoke and promise. Around them, the tribe celebrated quietly, respectfully. They'd lost people protecting her. She'd never forget that debt. As the couple retired to their wedding wickiup specially prepared with flowers and soft fur, Célestine heard Elu singing outside, a guard song to protect the newlyweds' privacy. Even in joy, the Apache remembered danger. Inside, by candlelight, Nahiasi traced the scars on her arms from Cochita's training. My warrior wife, he murmured. My soft warrior. She smiled. Your father was right. Soft body, strong spirit. He kissed her shoulder. Perfect balance. That night, for the first time in her life, Célestine felt beautiful. Not because her body had changed, but because the eyes seeing her had never held judgment, only desire and love. Outside, snow began to fall. Early winter. Change was coming to the Apache lands. But inside the wickiup, there was only warmth, only them, only the future they'd build together. Winter settled over the Apache camp like a white blanket. 3 months had passed since the wedding. Célestine's life had found rhythm: morning lessons with Elu, afternoon work with the women, evenings with Nahiasi planning for spring. Her Apache had improved enough that she could joke with the warriors, who'd stopped seeing her as an outsider. But this morning brought unexpected news. A Mexican trader arrived with a letter bearing an official seal. The Mexican government was offering the Apache a treaty-safe passage through Mexican territory in exchange for protecting Mexican supply lines from bandits. It was unprecedented. Why now? Chief Kosumi asked suspiciously. The trader explained, the French woman's inheritance includes water rights. Mexico needs those rights for their new rail lines. They offer partnership instead of war. Célestine read the documents carefully with Marcel's help. The deal was legitimate but complex. They want to run rails through Apache land, she explained to the council. In exchange, the Apache get legal recognition, protected territory, and payment for passage. It was everything they'd fought for, offered freely. Too freely. Nahiasi smelled a trap. What's the real price? The trader hesitated, then admitted, they want the Apache to stop raiding Mexican settlements. Completely. And they want the French woman to sign the papers. Her inheritance makes it legal. The council erupted in argument. Some saw opportunity. Others saw betrayal of their way of life. Raiding was how young warriors proved themselves. But Cochita spoke wisdom, the world changes. We can change with it or be crushed by it. Célestine felt the weight of decision. Her signature could save or doom the tribe. That night, she couldn't sleep. She walked to the river where she'd first kissed Nahiasi. He found her there, as she knew he would. Heavy thoughts? He asked. She nodded. If I sign, I change your people forever. If I don't, the Mexicans might just take what they want anyway. He sat beside her. They're your people too now. The words warmed her, but the responsibility remained. What would your mother do? She asked. He thought for a long moment. She'd find a third option. She always did. And suddenly, Célestine saw it. What if we make our own terms? She explained her idea, accept the treaty but add conditions. The Apache would protect Mexican supply lines, but they'd also run them. Apache guides, Apache protection, Apache knowledge of the land. Not servants but partners. The next morning, she presented the counterproposal to the trader. He laughed at first. Apache running supply lines? Absurd. But Marcel, who'd become invaluable, pulled out ledgers. The Apache know every water hole, every shortcut, every danger. Mexican guides lose 30% of supplies to environment and bandits. Apache could cut that to 5%. Numbers didn't lie. The trader stopped laughing. I'll need to consult my superiors. But Célestine wasn't finished. And we want schools. Apache children learning to read and write, in Apache and Spanish. We want medicine, real medicine for our healers to learn. The trader looked scandalized. Education for savages? Nahiasi's hand went to his knife, but Célestine touched his arm gently. To the trader, she said sweetly, this savage speaks 3 languages and is about to control the water rights to half of northern Mexico. Perhaps reconsider your words. 2 weeks later, the Mexican delegation arrived. Not just traders but officials, lawyers, even a priest. They expected to negotiate with Chief Kosumi. They found Célestine waiting, dressed in a mixture of Apache and European clothing, her silver locket visible, her bear claw necklace prominent. Gentlemen, she said in perfect Spanish. Shall we discuss the future? The negotiations took 3 days. Célestine proved she'd learned more than language from the Apache. She'd learned patience, strategy, the power of silence. When the Mexicans pushed, she pulled back. When they threatened, she reminded them of the water rights. Marcel kept perfect records. Nahiasi stood behind her, silent but present. His presence said everything, harm her, and face Apache justice. Finally, they reached agreement. The Apache would protect and guide Mexican supply lines. In exchange, legal recognition of Apache territory, payment in gold and supplies, schools for Apache children, and medical training for healers. But Célestine added one more condition: Apache women will have equal rights in this treaty. They can own property, run businesses, make contracts. The Mexican lawyers protested women couldn't have such rights. Célestine smiled. In Apache law, they can. This treaty respects both laws. She looked at Cochita, who nodded approval. It was radical, unprecedented. It would change everything. The night before signing, doubt crept in again. Am I doing the right thing? She asked Nahiasi. He held her close. You're doing the only thing. Survival. The treaty was signed at dawn, with the entire tribe watching. As Célestine put pen to paper, she thought of her father. He'd sent her here as punishment. Instead, she'd become the bridge between worlds, the protector of her adopted people. The ultimate revenge was success. Spring brought unexpected joy. Célestine realized she was pregnant when the morning sickness started. The medicine woman confirmed it with a knowing smile. "The child grows strong," she said. "Like its mother." Nahiasi's reaction was pure wonder. He placed his hand on her still flat stomach and whispered in Apache, "My child. Our child." The tribe celebrated. Even those who doubted the marriage couldn't deny the significance new life meant hope. Elu was ecstatic. "I'll be a big sister," she declared, though technically she'd be more like an aunt. But Célestine let her claim whatever role brought joy. The pregnancy wasn't easy. Her body, already large, swelled more. The summer heat became unbearable. Some days, she could barely ride. But the Apache women surrounded her with care, sharing remedies, stories, strength. 6 months into the pregnancy, trouble arrived. American Buffalo soldiers, led by a Captain Washington, rode into camp under a white flag. They brought news that made Célestine's blood freeze. "There's a warrant for your arrest," Captain Washington told her. "Filed by French authorities. They claim you murdered Baron Beaumont." It was a lie, but lies with official seals carried weight. "I was here when he died," Célestine protested. "Hundreds of miles away." The captain looked sympathetic. "I know. We all know. But someone wants you badly enough to pay judges, forge documents." He leaned closer. "Someone who believes you have hidden French gold." The creditors hadn't given up. They'd just gotten smarter. "What do you want?" Nahiasi asked, his hand on his knife. Captain Washington surprised them. "To warn you. And to offer alternative." He was Apache himself, half Apache, half black. His mother had been from Cochita's band. "Come to Fort Sill," he offered. "Testify to American authorities about the Baron's death. We have witnesses who saw him alive after you left. Clear your name under American law." It was a trap or salvation, impossible to know which. But Célestine was tired of running, tired of hiding. "I'll go," she decided. Nahiasi protested, but she was firm. "Our child deserves a mother without bounties on her head." The journey to Fort Sill took 5 days. Célestine rode in a wagon, her pregnancy making horseback impossible. Nahiasi rode beside her with 20 warriors. Captain Washington's soldiers kept respectful distance. At the fort, she faced a military tribunal. The French authorities had sent a prosecutor, a sharp-faced man named Dubois, who clearly expected easy victory. But Célestine had prepared. Marcel had documented everything: dates, witnesses, the original trade that gave her to the Apache. Marguerite had sent testimony from her convent. Even Joaquin, the Mexican trader, testified via letter that Baron Beaumont had shot first, that Célestine had been protecting her tribe. The trial lasted 2 days. Dubois painted her as a savage, a woman who'd abandoned civilization for barbarism. But when Célestine spoke in her own defense, the room went silent. "My father sold me like livestock because I was fat. He beat me for eating. He considered me worthless because I didn't match his idea of beauty." She stood, her pregnant belly prominent. "The Apache took me in. They taught me strength. They gave me love. If choosing life over abuse makes me savage, then yes, I'm savage. And proud of it." The verdict was swift: not guilty. The warrant was dismissed. But Dubois had one more card. "She may be innocent of murder, but she's still French property. French law says unmarried women belong to their fathers or closest male relative." He smiled coldly. "Baron Beaumont had a brother in Paris. She belongs to him now." The room erupted. Nahiasi nearly killed Dubois before soldiers restrained him. But Captain Washington stood. "She's not unmarried. She married under Apache law, recognized by Mexican treaty. And now," he pulled out a document, "under American law too. I registered their marriage yesterday." It was irregular, possibly illegal, but it stood. Du Bois left in rage, promising this wasn't over. But for now, Célestine was free. The journey home was tense. Everyone knew Du Bois would return with more lawyers, more tricks. But those were worries for another day. At 7 months pregnant, Célestine just wanted peace. They got 3 weeks of it. Then her water broke during a summer storm. The birth was hard, 30 hours of labor. The medicine woman looked worried. The baby was large, like its mother. Nahiasi paced outside the birthing wickiup, wearing grooves in the earth. Inside, Célestine fought for her child's life and her own. Too big, the medicine woman muttered. Baby too big. But Célestine had been called too big her whole life. She'd proved them wrong before. She'd prove them wrong now. With a final push that felt like it split her in two, her son was born. He screamed immediately, strong lungs announcing his arrival. Dark hair like his father, blue eyes like his mother. A bridge between worlds, literally. They named him Dakota, friend to everyone. He was perfect. When Nahiasi held him for the first time, tears ran down the warrior's face. He's huge, Ayana laughed. Like his mother. But it wasn't an insult. It was pride. This child would never be small, never be weak. He'd inherited his mother's strength and his father's courage. The tribe celebrated for 3 days. Even other Apache bands sent gifts. The half-blood warrior and the French woman had created something new, a child who belonged to all worlds and none, who would grow up truly free. That night, as Célestine nursed her son while Nahiasi held Elu, who refused to leave the baby's side, she felt complete. Her father had thrown her away. The world had called her worthless. But here she was, wife, mother, protector, bridge builder. She'd taken every insult and turned it into strength. The baby fussed, and she sang him a French lullaby her mother had once sung. Nahiasi added an Apache blessing. Elu hummed along. 3 cultures, 1 family. It was everything Baron Beaumont would have hated. It was perfect. Dakota was 6 months old when the final confrontation came. He'd grown strong and fat on his mother's milk, already trying to crawl, his mixed heritage making him beautiful in unexpected ways. The camp had settled into peaceful routine, the Mexican treaty working, trade flowing, the school even starting with Apache children learning letters. Then riders appeared on the horizon. Not soldiers this time. French nobility. Baron Beaumont's brother had come from Paris, Count Philippe Beaumont, with 20 men and legal documents. But he hadn't come alone. Marguerite was with him, pale and terrified. He took me from the convent, she told Célestine when they were allowed to embrace. Said I'd watch you be dragged back to France in chains. Count Philippe was everything his brother was: tall, refined, coldly intelligent. You've caused considerable trouble, he said in cultured French. A fortune in legal fees to track down one wayward woman. I'm not wayward. I'm married. I have a child, Célestine replied, holding Dakota tighter. The Count smiled thinly. Savage ceremonies mean nothing. Your son is illegitimate. You're still Beaumont property. He produced papers. French court ruling. You return with me to face trial for theft, my brother's missing fortune, or I burn this camp to the ground. He had the men for it, armed with new repeating rifles. The Apache were outnumbered, outgunned. But Célestine had learned patience from her adopted people. May I read these documents? She asked calmly. The Count, surprised by her literacy, handed them over. She read carefully, Marcel helping translate complex legal terms. Then she smiled. These are dated 3 months ago. Before the American tribunal cleared me. Your documents are worthless here. The Count's face darkened. American law means nothing to France. But Mexican law might, Célestine countered. She pulled out her own documents: the treaty, the land rights, her legal status as a Mexican citizen through the water rights. I'm protected by 3 governments now. Apache, American, and Mexican. The Count laughed. Paper shields won't stop bullets. That's when Conchita acted. She'd been scouting and had made a discovery. Your men aren't loyal, she announced in French, surprising everyone. Half are mercenaries who haven't been paid. The other half are debtors forced into service. She smiled coldly. We offer better terms. Gold from the Mexican treaty for any man who walks away now. 5 men immediately dismounted and left. Then 10. Then 15. Money talked louder than loyalty. Count Philippe stood with only 5 men, suddenly outnumbered. But he had one more card. He grabbed Marguerite, knife to her throat. Give yourself up, or your sister dies. The camp went silent. Nahiasi raised his bow, but Célestine stopped him. You'd kill your own niece? She asked the count. She's no blood of mine. Augustine's daughters mean nothing except as tools. Marguerite whimpered. Célestine felt rage building, the same rage that had carried her through labor, through trials, through transformation. Then you've made a mistake, she said quietly. You've threatened my family. She handed Dakota to Ayanna and walked forward slowly. The count pressed the knife tighter to Marguerite's throat. Stop, or she dies. Célestine kept walking. You won't kill her. She's your only leverage. When she was close enough, she did what Conchita had taught her, used her weight as weapon. She lunged forward, slamming into both the count and Marguerite. The knife went flying. Marguerite rolled away. The count fell hard with Célestine on top of him. He tried to fight, but she was twice his weight and had been trained by Apache warriors. She pressed her knee into his chest, cutting off his air. This is for every girl you would have enslaved, she hissed. For every woman you think you own. He gasped, face purple. Around them, his remaining men were surrounded by Apache warriors. No one would save him. Yield, Nahiasi commanded. Or die. The count yielded, gasping for air when Célestine finally stood. But the victory felt hollow until Marguerite spoke. I have something, she said, pulling papers from her dress. Mother's real will. Hidden in the convent. She left everything to Célestine. Father's claim was always illegal. She turned to the count. You have no claim. You never did. Your brother stole from his own wife. The count's face went white. If this was true, he'd spent a fortune chasing nothing. Prove it, he demanded. Marguerite produced witnesses, 2 nuns who'd traveled with her, who'd witnessed the original will. It was ironclad. Célestine owned everything legally. The count had nothing. Leave, Chief Kosumi commanded. Never return. Tell France that Célestine Beaumont is dead. Only Célestine of the Apache lives. The count left, broken and bitter. But Marguerite stayed. May I remain? She asked tentatively. I have nowhere else. Célestine embraced her sister. You'll always have a place here. That night, the tribe celebrated victory, not of weapons but of law, cleverness, and courage. Célestine had faced down her past and won. As she nursed Dakota by the fire, surrounded by her true family, she realized the truth: her father's punishment had become her salvation. He'd meant to break her. Instead, he'd sent her to the only place where she could become whole. Nahiasi sat beside her, Elu leaning against him, Marguerite learning to hold the baby properly. The fire crackled, sending sparks into the star-filled sky. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The Mexican treaty would need managing. Dakota would grow up between worlds. Marguerite would need to find her place. But tonight, they were together. They were family. They were free. 10 years had passed since Baron Beaumont had given his daughter to the Apache as punishment. Now, Célestine stood at the edge of their thriving settlement, no longer just a camp but a proper town. Adobe buildings mixed with traditional wickiups. The school had 20 students learning in 3 languages. The trading post she'd established with her inheritance had become the most successful in the territory. Dakota, now 10, raced past on his pony, leading a pack of Apache and Mexican children in some game. He'd grown tall and strong like his mother, quick and clever like his father. Elu, now 17, had become the school's first teacher, brilliant and passionate about education. Marguerite had married Marcel 2 years ago, a scandal in French society but perfect in their new world. Their daughter, named for their mother, toddled around the trading post, speaking Apache before French. "The government men are coming," Nahiasi said, approaching from behind. He'd aged well, silver threading through his black hair, the leader his father had trained him to be. Chief Kosumi had passed 3 winters ago, leaving Nahiasi as chief. Célestine turned to face him. At 33, she was no longer the scared girl who'd arrived in dust and tears. Her body, still large, was now powerful. She could ride all day, shoot straight, negotiate in 4 languages. The government men wanted to buy water rights for the railroad. It would make them wealthy beyond imagination. But wealth had never been the goal. "What do you think?" she asked. Nahiasi smiled. "I think my wife will make the right choice, as always." She laughed. He still had such faith in her, even after all these years. The meeting was held in the great hall they'd built, a mixture of Apache and European architecture that had become a symbol of their blended community. The government officials, all stern men in black suits, seemed uncomfortable in the space. "Mrs. Beaumont," one began. "Mrs. Nahiasi," she corrected. "Or Célestine of the Apache." "Never Beaumont." The man cleared his throat. "Yes, well. Our offer is generous. $500,000 for complete water rights." It was more money than most people would see in 10 lifetimes. The room was packed, Apache, Mexicans, even some Americans who'd joined their community. All waiting to see what she'd decide. Célestine stood, no longer self-conscious about taking up space. "Gentlemen, let me tell you a story. 10 years ago, a father threw away his daughter because she was too fat, too much, too everything he despised. He thought he was punishing her." She walked around the table, commanding attention. "That girl could have died. Should have died, by his thinking. Instead, she found people who saw her worth beyond her body. She learned that strength comes in many forms. She discovered that families are made by choice, not blood." She stopped before the main official. "Your money could buy many things. But it can't buy what we've built here. Every drop of water that flows through this land feeds Apache children who would have starved. Mexican families who would have been killed in raids. American settlers who would have died of thirst." She pulled out her own documents. "So here's my counteroffer. The railroad can have water rights for their trains. In exchange, they hire Apache and Mexican workers at fair wages. They transport our goods at reduced rates. They recognize this territory as sovereign, governed by our own laws." The official sputtered. "That's not how business works." "It's how our business works," she replied firmly. The negotiation took 3 days. In the end, Célestine won most of her terms. The railroad needed that water too desperately to walk away. As the officials left, one turned back. "You're nothing like we expected." The story said Baron Beaumont's daughter was weak, pathetic. Célestine smiled. "She was. But she died 10 years ago. I was born from her ashes." That evening, the community celebrated. Apache drums mixed with Mexican guitars. French wine flowed alongside Apache tiswin. Dakota danced with both Apache precision and French flair. Marguerite sang their mother's songs. Elu told stories to the children in 3 languages. And at the center of it all, Nahiasi and Célestine watched their world, the one they built from rejection and pain. "Do you ever think about him?" Nahiasi asked quietly. "Your father?" Célestine considered. "Sometimes. But not with anger anymore. With pity. He had 2 daughters and threw them both away for not meeting his standards. He died alone, hated, bankrupt in every way that mattered." She took her husband's hand. "He gave me to you as the ultimate insult. Instead, he gave me everything. As the moon rose full like on their wedding night, Conchita approached. The old warrior was gray now but still fierce. The young ones want to hear the story, she said. How the French woman became Apache. How she saved us while we saved her. Célestine stood to tell it, but Dakota jumped up. I'll tell it. I know it by heart. And he did, in Apache and French and Spanish, the story of his mother's transformation. As her son spoke, Célestine felt her mother's presence. The woman who'd written that letter so long ago, who'd known her daughter was meant for more than corseted suffocation. She touched the locket still worn at her throat, now accompanied by Apache beads and Mexican silver. Thank you, she whispered to the spirit of her mother. For seeing me truly. The story ended with cheers and tears. Children who'd never known hunger because of the treaties she'd negotiated. Women who owned businesses because of the precedents she'd set. Warriors who'd found new purpose as protectors rather than raiders. All because a fat French noblewoman had been thrown away and caught by people who knew the value of different kinds of strength. As the celebration continued into the night, Célestine stood at the edge of firelight, looking out at the desert that had become home. Nahiasi joined her, as he always did. Any regrets? He asked. She thought of the girl she'd been, desperate for her father's approval, hating her body, believing she was worthless. That girl had needed to die for this woman to be born. No regrets, she said firmly. Only gratitude. In the distance, coyotes held the same sound that had terrified her that first night. Now it was just part of the symphony of home. She was Célestine of the Apache. Wife, mother, leader, bridge between worlds. She was exactly who she was meant to be. And she was loved, fiercely and completely, not despite her differences but because of them. Her father had meant to destroy her. Instead, he'd set her free. And in her freedom, she'd freed others, Apache women who now owned property, Mexican families who lived without fear, American settlers who found fair trade, and one little sister who'd discovered her own strength. The full circle was complete. The punishment had become the gift. The exile had become the homecoming. And the woman once called too much had become exactly enough to change worlds, enough to build bridges, enough to prove that love sees beyond surfaces to the truth beneath. As she stood there, Nahiasi's arm around her, Dakota's laughter in the air, Elu and Marguerite singing together, she knew one absolute truth: she was home. Not the home she was born to, but the home she'd earned, fought for, and chosen. The home where she was treasured like the rare jewel her husband had always known her to be. The Apache had a saying, wisdom comes through suffering. Célestine had suffered. But more importantly, she had survived, thrived, and transformed that suffering into something beautiful. Her story would be told for generations: the French noblewoman who became Apache, who proved that worth has nothing to do with weight, that families are made by choice, and that sometimes the greatest punishment becomes the greatest gift. And somewhere in the spirit world, she hoped her mother was watching, proud of the warrior her daughter had become,